Living world. How wonderful is the living world? The wide range of living types is amazing. The extraordinary habits in which we find living organisms, be it cold mountains, deciduous forests, oceans, freshwater, lakes, deserts, or hot springs, leave us speechless. The beauty of galloping horse, of the migrating birds, and the value of the flowers are attacking shocks, evoke awe and a deep sense of wonder. The ecological conflicts and cooperation among the members of a population, among a population of a community, or even a molecular traffic inside a cell make us deeply reflect on what indeed is life. This question has two implicit questions within it. The first is a technical one and seeks answer to what living is and opposite to non-living, and the second is philosophical one and seeks answer to what purpose of life is. As a scientist, we shall not attempt answering the second question. We will try to reflect on what is living. Section 1.1. What is living? When we try to define living, we conventionally look for distinctive characteristics exhibited by living organisms: growth, reproduction, ability to sense environment, and mount a suitable response come to our mind immediately as a unique feature of living organisms. One can add a few more features like metabolism, ability to self-replicate, self-organize, interact, and emergence to this list. Let us try to understand each of these. All living organisms grow, increase in mass, increase in number of individuals are twin characteristics of growth. A multicellular organism even grows by cell division. In plants, this growth by the cell division occurs continuously throughout their life. In animals, this growth is seen only up to the certain age. However, cell divisions occur in certain tissues to replace the lost cells. Unicellular organisms grow by cell division. One can easily observe this in vitro cultures by simply counting the number of cells under the microscope. In majority of higher animals and plants, the growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive events. One must remember that increase in body mass is considered as growth. Non-living objects also grow if we take increase in body mass as a criterion for growth. Mountains, boulders, sand mounds do grow. However, this kind of growth exhibited by non-living objects is by accumulating of materials on the surface. In living organisms, growth is from inside. Growth therefore can't be taken as a defining property of the living organism. Important one for the statement types. Conditions under which it can observe in all the living organisms have to be explained, and then we understand that it is a characteristic living systems. A dead organism doesn't grow. Reproduction likewise is a characteristic of living organisms. In multicellular organisms, reproduction refers to the production of progeny possessing features more or less to those of parents. Invariably and implicitly, we refer to sexual reproduction. Organisms reproduce by asexually means also. Fungi multiply and spread easily due to millions of asexual spores they produce. In lower organisms like yeast, hydra, we observe budding. In planaria, example flatworms, we observe true regeneration. A fragmented organisms regenerated a lost parts of the body and become a new organism. The fungi and the filamentous algae and the protonema of the mosses all easily multiply by the fragmentation. Mug up the above examples. They may be helpful in your exams. When it comes to unicellular organisms like bacteria, unicellular algae or amoeba, reproduction is synonym with growth. Increase in number of cells. We have already defined the growth as equivalent to increase in the cell or mass. Hence, we notice that in single celled organisms, we are not very clear about the usual of these two terms known as growth and reproduction. Further, there are many organisms which do not reproduce. Examples are mules, sterile worker bees, honeybees, infertile human couple, etc. Hence, reproduction also can't be an inclusive defining feature of living organisms. This is also a statement type question. Of course, no non-living object is capable of reproducing or replicating itself. Another characteristic of life is metabolism. All living organisms are made up of chemicals. These chemicals, small and big, belonging to the various classes, size and functions, etc., are constantly being made and changed into some other biomolecules. These conversions are chemical reactions are metabolic reactions. They are thousands of metabolic reactions occurring simultaneously inside all the living organisms, be they unicellular or multicellular. All plants and animals, fungi and microbe exhibit metabolism. The sum total of all the chemical reactions occurring in our body is called metabolism. No non-living object exhibit metabolism. Metabolic reactions can be demonstrated outside the body in a cell-free systems. An isolated metabolic reactions outside the body of an organism performed in a test tube is neither living or non-living. Hence, while metabolic reaction is a defining feature of all the living organisms without exception, important one, isolated metabolic reactions in vitro are not living things but surely living reactions. This is also important one. Cellular organisms of the body is the defining feature of life forms. Perhaps the most obvious and technically complicated feature of all living organisms is this ability to sense their environment or surroundings and response to their environmental stimuli, which could be physical or chemical or biological. We sense our environment through our sense organs. Plants respond to external factors like light, water, temperature, and other organisms, pollutants, etc. All organisms from the prokaryotes to the most complex eukaryotes can sense and respond to the environmental cues. Photoperiod affects the reproduction in seasonal breeders, both plants and animals. All organisms handle chemicals entering their bodies. All the organisms therefore are aware of their surroundings. Human being is the only organism who is aware of himself, has self-consciousness. Consciousness therefore becomes the defining property of living organisms. When it comes to human beings, it is all the more difficult to define the living state. When we observe patients lying in a coma in the hospital, virtually supported by the machines which replace the heart and lungs, function of heart and lungs, the patient otherwise brain dead. The patient has no self-consciousness. Are such patients who never come back to the normal life are living or non-living? In higher classes, you will come to know that all the living phenomena are due to underlying interactions. The property of tissues are not present in the constituent cells but arise as a result of interactions among the constituent cells. Similarly, properties of the cellular organisms are not present in the molecular constituents of the organisms but arise as a result of interactions among the molecular components comprising the organelles. These interactions results in emergent properties at a higher level of organization. This phenomena is true in the hierarchy of organizational complexity at all levels. Therefore, we can say that living organisms are self-replicating, evolving, self-regulating and interactive systems capable of responding to external stimuli. Biology is the story of life on earth. Biology is the story of evolution of living organisms on earth. All the living organisms present, past, future are linked to one another by sharing the common genetic material but varying degrees. Diversity in the living world. If you look around, you will see a large variety of living organisms, be it potted plants, insects, birds, your pets, other animals and plants. There are also several organisms that you can't see with your naked eye, but they all are around you. If you were to increase the area that you make observations in, the range and the variety of organisms that you see would increase. Obviously, if you were to visit a dense forest, you would probably see a much greater number and kind of living organisms in it. Each different kind of plants and animals or organisms that you see represents a species. The number of species that known as and described range is in between 1.7 to 1.8 million. This refers to biodiversity or the number and the type of organisms present on earth. We should remember here that as we explore new areas and even old ones, and new organisms are continuously being identified. As stated earlierly, there are millions of plants and animals in the world. We know that plants and animals in our own area by their local names. These local names would vary from place to place. Even within a country, probably you could recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find a way that and means to talk to each other to refer to organisms we are talking about. Hence, there is no need to standardize the naming of living organisms, such as the particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. This process is called nomenclature. Obviously, nomenclature or naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly and we know to what organism the name is attached to. This is identification. In order to facilitate the study, number of scientists have established the procedures to assign a scientific name to each known organisms. This is acceptable to biologists all over the world. For the plants, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria which are provided in International Code for Botanical Nomenclature (ICBN). You may ask, how are animals named? Animal taxonomists have been evolved internationally code for Zoological Nomenclature (ICZN). Very important repeated questions are here. The scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. Description of any organism should be enable the people in any part of the world to arrive at the same name. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other organism. Biologists universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to know the organisms. Each name has two components, the generic name and the specific epithet. This system of providing a name with two components is called binomial nomenclature. This naming system given by Carolus Linnaeus is being practiced by biologists all over the world. This naming system using a two-word font was found convenient. Let us take an example of mango to understand the way of providing scientific names better. The scientific name of mango is written as Magnifera indica. Let us see how it is a binomial name. In this name, Magnifera represents the genus, while the indica is a particular species or a specific epithet. Other universal rules of nomenclature are as follows. Biological names are generally in Latin, written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin or irrespective of their origin. The first word in biological name represents genus, while the second component denotes the specific epithet. Both the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined or printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin. The first word denoting the genus starts with a capital letter, while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. It can be illustrated with an example of Magnifera indica. Genus capital letter M magnifera, and while the specific epithet I with a small letter in indica. Name of the author appears after the specific epithet at the end of the biological name. Is written in an abbreviated form. Example Magnifera indica Lin. It indicates that this species was first described by Linnaeus. Since it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to make this possible. This process is called classification. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. For example, we easily recognize groups such as plants or animals or dogs, cats or insects, etc. This moment we use any of these terms, we associate certain characters with the organisms in that group. What image do you see when you think of a dog? Obviously, each one of us will see dogs and not cats. Now, if we were to think of Alsatians, we know what are we talking about. Similarly, suppose we were to say mammals, you would of course think of mammals with external ears and body hairs. Likewise, in plants, if we try to talk of wheat, the picture in each of our minds will be a wheat plants, not a rice or any other plant. Hence, all these dogs, cats, mammals, wheat and rice, plants and animals, etc., are convenient categories we use to study organisms. The scientific term of these categories is called taxa. Hence, you must recognize that taxa can indicate categories at very different levels. Plants also form a taxa, wheat is also a taxa. Similarly, animals, mammals, dogs are all taxa. But you know that a dog is a mammal and mammals are animals. Therefore, animals, mammals and dogs represent taxa at different level. Hence, based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is called taxonomy. External and internal structures, along with the structure of the cell and development process and ecological information of organisms are essential and form the basis of the modern taxonomic studies. Hence, categorization, identification, and classification and nomenclature are the processes that are basic to taxonomy. Taxonomy is not something new. Human beings have always been interested in knowing more and more about the various kinds of organisms, particularly with reference to their own use. In earlier days, human beings need to find sources for their basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter. Hence, earliest classifications were based on use of various organisms. Human beings were since long not only interested in knowing more about different kind of organisms and their diversities, but also the relationship among them. This branch of study was referred to as systematics. The word systematics is derived from Latin word systema, which means systematic arrangement of organisms. Linnaeus used Systema Naturae as the title of his publication. The scope of systematics was later enlarged to include identification, nomenclature, and classification. Systematics takes into account evolutionary relationships between organisms. Taxonomic categories. Classification is not a single step process but involves hierarchy of steps in which each step represents a rank or category. Since the category is a part of overall taxonomic arrangements, it is called taxonomic category and all categories together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy. Each category referred to as unit of classification in fact represents a rank and is commonly termed as taxon and taxa. Taxonomic characters and hierarchy can be illustrated by an example. Insects represents a group of organisms sharing a common features like three pairs of jointed legs. It means insects are recognizable concrete objects which can be classified and thus were given a rank or category. Can you name other such group of organisms? Remember, groups represent category and category thus denote as a rank. Each rank or taxon in fact represents a unit of classification. These taxonomic groups and categories are distinct biological entities are not merely morphological aggregates. Taxonomic studies of all known organisms have led to development of common categories such as kingdom, phylum or division. For plants is division is from plants, class, order, family, genus and species. All organisms including those in the plants and animal kingdoms have a species as the lowest category. Now the question you may ask is how to place an organism in various categories. The basic requirement is the knowledge of characters of an individual or group of organisms. This helps in identifying similarities and dissimilarities among the individuals of the same kind of organism as well as other kind of organisms. And next, species. Taxonomic studies consider a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities as a species. One should be able to distinguish one species from the other closely related species based on the distinct morphological differences. Let us consider Magnifera indica, Solanum tuberosum, potato, Panthero leo, line. All the three names indica, tuberosum and leo represents the specific epithets, while the first words Magnifera, Solanum and Panthera are the genera and represents another higher level of taxon or category. Each genus may have one or more than one specific epithets representing different organisms but having morphological similarities. For example, the Panthera has another specific epithet called tigris, and the Solanum includes species like nigrum and melongena, and human beings belongs to the species known as sapiens, which is grouped in the genus called Homo. The scientific name thus for the human beings is written as Homo sapiens. Next, genus. The genus comprises a group of related species which has more character in common to comparison to the species of the other genera. We can say that genera are aggregated of closely related species. For example, potato and brinjal are the two different species but both belongs to the genus Solanum. Lion, Panthera leo, leopard, Panthera pardus, tiger, Panthera tigris, with several common features for all species of the genus Panthera. This genus differs from another genus Felis, which include cats. Next, 1.3.3 family. The next category, family, as a group of related genera with a still less number of similarities are compared to the genus and species. The family are categorized on the basis of the both vegetative and reproductive features of the plant species. Among plants, for example, three different genera Solanum, Petunia and Datura are placed in the family known as Solanaceae. Among animals, for example, genus Panthera comprising lions, tiger, leopard is put along with the genus. Next, Felis, it's cats in the family Felidae. Similarly, if you observe the features of the cats and the dogs, you will find some similarities and some differences as well. They are separated into two different families, Felidae and Canidae, respectively. Next, and it is 1.3.4 order. You have seen earlier that characters like species, genus and families are based on the number of similar characters. Generally, order and other higher taxonomic characters are identified based on aggregates of characters. Order, being a higher category, is the assemblage of families which exhibit a few similar characters. The few similar characters are less in the number as compared to different genera included in a family. The plant families like Convolvulaceae and Solanaceae are induced in the order Palminoids, mainly based on floral characters. The animals order Carnivore includes the families like Felidae and Canidae. Next class. This character includes related orders. For example, order Primata comprising monkey, gorilla and gibbon is placed in a class Mammaliae along with the order Carnivore. That includes animals like tiger, cat and dog. Class Mammalia has other orders also. Phylum. Classes comprising the animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, along with mammals constitute the next higher category called phylum. All these based on the common features like presence of notochord, dorsal hollow neural system are included in the phylum chordata. In case of plants, classes with few similar characters are assigned to higher category called divisions. Kingdom. All the animals belong to various phyla are assigned to highest category called kingdom Animalia in the classification of system of animals. The kingdom Plantae on the other hand is distinct and comprises the all plants from various divisions. Henceforth, we will refer to these two type of groups as animals and plant kingdoms. The taxonomic characters from species to kingdom has been shown in the ascending order in the picture with starting with the species and the figure 1.1. You can see that species, genus, family, order, class, phylum are division in plants and kingdom. While going to species to kingdom, the number of characters, the common features of the characters are decreases. They are broadly categorized. However, the taxonomic have also divided subcategories in the hierarchy to facilitate more sound and scientific placement of various taxa. Look at the hierarchy in the figure. You can recall the basis of arrangements. For example, we go higher from species to kingdom. The number of common characters goes on decreasing. The lower the taxa, more are the characteristics that the members within the taxa share. Higher the category, greater is the difficulty of determining the relationship to the other tags at the same level. Hence, the problem of classification has become more complex. You can see the table here. It's a organisms with their taxonomic categories. The examples here are man, housefly, mango, wheat. Man biological name is Homo sapiens, genus is Homo, family is Hominidae, and order is Primata, and class is Mammalia, and the phylum is Chordata. Next. Housefly biological name is Musca domestica, and genus is Musca, and family is Musidae, and order is Diptera, and class is Insecta, and the phylum is Arthropoda. Next, mango. Biological name is Magnifera indica, genus is Magnifera, and the family is Anacardiaceae, and the order is Sapindales, and the class is Dicotyledon, and the division is Angiospermae. Wheat. Triticum aestivum is the biological name, and the genus is Triticum, and the family is Poaceae, and the order is Poles, and the class is Monocotyledone, and the phylum is Angiospermae. Taxonomical aids. Taxonomic studies of various species of plants, animals, and other organisms are useful in agriculture, forestry, and industries, and in general knowing of our biospheres and their diversity. These studies could require correct classification and identification of organisms. Identification of organisms requires the intensive laboratory and field studies. The collection of actual specimens of plants and animal species is essential and is the primary source of taxonomic studies. These are also fundamental to studies and essential for training in the systematics. It is useful for classification of an organism, and the information gathered is also stored along with the specimens. In some cases, the specimen is preserved for the further studies. Biologists have established a certain procedures and technique to store and preserve the information as well as the specimen. Some of them are explained to help us understand the uses of these aids. Herbariums. Herbarium is a storehouse of collected plant specimens. They are dried, pressed, and preserved on sheets. Further, the sheets are arranged according to the universally accepted system of classification. These specimens, along with their description on the herbarium sheets, become a storehouse of the respiratory for the future use. The herbarium sheets also carry a label providing information about data, place of collection, English, local and botanical names, family, collectors' names, and etc. Herbaria also serves as a quick referral system in taxonomic studies. Next, botanical gardens. These are specialized gardens have collections of living plants for reference. Plant species in these gardens are grown for identification purpose, and each plant is labeled indicating its botanical or scientific name and its family. The famous botanical gardens are at Kew, it's England, and Indian Botanical Garden is at Howrah, Calcutta, India, and National Botanical Research Institute is at Lucknow, India. Next, museum. Biological museums are generally set up in educational institutes such as schools and colleges. Museums have collection of preserved plants and animal specimens for study and reference. The specimens are preserved in the containers or jar in a preservative solutions. Plant and animal specimens may also be preserved as dry specimens. Insects are preserved in insects after collecting, killing, and pinning. Large animals, birds are usually stuffed and preserved. Museums also have a collection of skeletons of animals too. Next, zoological parks. These are the places where wild animals are kept in protected environment under human care, which enable us to learn about their food habits and behavior. All animals in a zoo are provided as far as possible the conditions similar to the natural habitats. Children love visiting these parks, commonly called zoos. You can see the pictures of the animals given below. Elephant and extra. Next, key. Key is another taxonomical aid used for identification of plants and animals based on the similarities and dissimilarities. The keys are based on the contrasting characters generally in a pair called couplet. It represents a choice made between two opposite options. This results in acceptance of only one and rejection of the other. Each statement in a key is called a lead. Separate taxonomic keys are required for each taxonomic category such as family, genus and species for identification purpose. Keys are generally analytic in nature. Flora, manuals, and monographs or catalogs are some of the other means of recording descriptions. They helps in correct identification. Flora contains the actual amount of habitat and distribution of plants of a given area. This provided the index to the plant species found in a particular area. Manuals are useful in providing information for identification of names of species found in an area. Monographs contains information on any one taxon. Thank you.